Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the June 2025 Library Board meeting, called to order at 5:30. Public appearances. I believe all of our guests are. Yep. Item number 3, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the May 2025 draft minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Any clarifications, changes, questions about the minutes? Everybody a second. Okay, if no discussion, are all in favor of approving the May 2025 draft minutes say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, financial report. May I have a motion to approve the March 2025 financial register and overview?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Dr. Dang.
All right, so we're looking at the register and the overview for March. Couple of things I'll point out. It was a 3-pay period month, so we talked about this a little bit last month. January is a little bit off because we had a reverse accrual back to December. February was very normal. March is not. As long as it all tallies by the end of the year, we're good. Looking at account 240, you'll see a battery replacement there for $8,050. This was planned maintenance on our battery backup system. What that does, it sounds fancier than it is. It gives us 30 minutes of emergency lights in case of a power outage. So it's not enough to run the building. It's not enough to keep business going. It's just enough to get people out of the building. Essentially, a whole bunch of car batteries in a big red cabinet, and I think this is the second time probably that we've replaced them. It's just the end of life for the batteries. Very unexciting thing to do, but needed to be done. The capacitor fan replacement was also part of that system, so that all happened. I mean, that was planned for, so nothing tragic there. The Harker, in that same account, Harker came out and did a zone valve replacement. That has to do with the in-floor heating system that was just not heating in the staff lounge. And that is all windows and very cold in the winter. So we were noticing that they had to come in and replace a couple of parts. So that's all working now. Under account 325, you'll see an online course there. That is a Spanish language class that Phil is taking through UW. And then sadly, in the utility account, you'll see a power bill for $9,395. I don't think this is going to be the highest one that we've seen, but this is where it starts to get really bad. It has come back down. I am less concerned now about the end of year. We were, I think, under 6,000 for May, so seems to be back on track. Still tracking it very closely, but this is one of the higher ones that we'll see. And then the city administrative fee, so down at the very bottom, that $245,000. So I requested several years ago that they just take that out in one chunk. That is what we pay the city for finance, HR, all the services that we get from them. They used to take it out quarterly, except then they would forget, and then it would look like we had a lot of money at the end of the year. And so I said, just take it Just be done with that early in the year. So that came out as well. Still in the revenue, very happy with interest income coming in. We're already over where we expected to be, and we did budget much higher this year than normal, so that's great. And the fund balances have been updated for this year. Any questions?
I have a question,
Yeah.
Wendy.
Yep.
For just out of curiosity, for the city administrative fee,
Uh-huh.
how does it calculate? Is it based on budget or?
It is based on the number of positions that are in each of the departments that we pay for service. And they take a percentage of, library staff, what percentage that is of the entire city staff, number-wise,
Okay.
and then they apply it to each of the positions that we pay for in each department. So it's kind of complicated, but explainable, if that makes sense. Yeah? Okay. It's a lot. I wish it wasn't. Any other questions?
You mentioned the utility bill was the highest that it's going to be. Is it usually higher in the winter, the summer, or equal?
Winter,
Okay.
usually. I mean, we have peaks in both.
Okay.
But I would say winter is higher
Okay.
typically, but these are even higher than, we really expected with the new chiller that things would come down immediately, and with solar up and running again. So it's sad that that didn't pan out, but I'm still hopeful that we're headed in the right direction, so.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right, if nothing else, all in favor of approving the March 2025 financial register and overview, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5, unfinished business, there is none.
We hate unfinished business, I never have it. I can't stand it.
All right, item number 6, new business, sub-item A, Dane County Library Service reimbursement formula presented by Tracy Harold. I don't think we need a motion for this, do we?
No,
Hi, Tracy.
we don't.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I was just reminiscing with Wendy that I worked a long time ago when I was at Sun Prairie Public with Deb Johnson on the operating budget for this building when all of that was going on. But it was just a wee idea. But it's very nice to be here, and I've had the pleasure of working with Wendy for many years now.
A lot of years now.
So, and I'm always happy to come out and talk to library boards about the reimbursements, especially when there are changes. And so, and I'm always available for questions. And just a mention that so the bookmobile used to come to Fitchburg quite a bit before you all had your library. So and it still goes up to other locations. Let me just see here. Okay, keep going. There we go. I'm just learning how to use Canva, so this is very new for me. So just a background of the Dane County Library Service. We were established in 1966 to provide services to towns and villages that didn't have their own libraries and cities, but I think Fitchburg was the last city to get a library. We've been distributing operational reimbursements pretty much since the inception for shared collection. Facility reimbursements were established in 1999, and standards were established in 2000. So just to kind of give you a background that initially there was just operational, and now there is the facility reimbursement that's been in place for quite a while. And I'm slowly but surely, at some point, I'm hoping before I retire, I would really like to get a program reimbursement for in place for the libraries. So I wanted to give you a little bit of information on the operational and facility reimbursement. And I wanted to make mention that with regards to the reimbursements, and that's a big part of what I do, and it's really like the most behind-the-scenes thing that we do at Dane County Library Service. Otherwise, we're out with the vehicles and out with serving with outreach, and but we want to make sure that all the libraries are reimbursed at 100% of their cost per service. That did come under some risk a few years ago when the county did a 97% and a 93% and a 95%, kind of, I think, in that order, 3 years in a row. Now, the county board seems to be very insistent on making sure that it's 100%. So we work to make sure that that continues. And then we also enforce, that sounds very much stronger than it is. But we do enforce the Dane County Library standards. And that just really goes towards the fact that not just any community can open a storefront and say, we're a library and have donated books and is open 5 hours a week. So there are definitely standards for exempting from the county library tax, which is what you all do. Okay, so on to reimbursements. So we'll start with operational. And I do apologize, this is going to be some information I'm kind of throwing at you, but I'm going to try to make some good sense of it, but I do think it's important to know the different factors involved. So the operational reimbursement is the reimbursement to libraries for their use and the use of their operations, so staff and circulation and collection and all of that kind of thing. The people who pay for that, basically, and for all Dane County Library Service, are the folks who live in those towns and villages without libraries. They pay a county library tax. You all pay a municipal tax for library support. So that's how people pay in Dane County for library service. I look at 3 factors of 4 when it comes to reimbursement. I don't care at all about Fitchburg residents' use of Fitchburg Library. You all do, and that's great, but I don't. I don't look at that. I look at the county, towns and villages, county residents who are using Fitchburg Library. And then I look at 2 of the cross-municipal pieces, which are the use of Fitchburg Library by other Dane County libraried residents and the use of other libraries by Fitchburg residents, okay? All of those numbers come together in a 3-year averaging. So we're looking at circulation and cost per circ, and we average that over 3 years. That just helps with regards to any spikes or anything interesting that may have happened. Certainly, when we went through COVID, we instead of, well, we couldn't really gather COVID numbers because all of the libraries were open at different way, offering different kinds of services. So we kind of put those statistics on a shelf, 2020, 2021, and 2020 and 2021. Yeah. So we used 2019, 18, and 17 for payments that were issued in 01, 02, and partly 03. And we'll get back to that in just a little bit. So in this year, what we're seeing, I know, and Wendy and I have talked about this, we saw a drop in, the largest drop was in your base reimbursement, which is basically what is made up by county residents using Fitchburg. Town of Madison went away in 2022, end of 2022. That had a bigger impact than we could have seen. And so we had about a 3,100 circulation drop, and Fitchburg has about a $7.80 per circ cost right now. And so that made up a significant part of our drop. And then with our cross-municipal service, Fitchburg still has more people going out to other libraries than it has other libraried residents coming to Fitchburg. So that's where we've got that cross-municipal ends up being a net negative and not a net positive, okay? And then we've got every library pays for their delivery, for their outreach cost, and some administrative cost for figuring all of this out. So at the end of the day, the reimbursement went down from last year. And as I've looked at all of the numbers and run them with Wendy, it's really that town of Madison drop that was really considerable when we look at the actual, and this is based on actual circulations, checkouts over the desk. That's what, or across the self-check. It doesn't have to do with what Fitchburg lends to other libraries or what Fitchburg gets in from other libraries for patrons. It's literally what is checked out over your desk. That is what is considered a circulation. So that's the operational side of things. And I'll pause there to see if there are any questions.
Tracy?
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is, the town of Madison went away administratively, right, like structurally, but the people are not. So I was wondering how does that impact our circulation? Like, I know it went down, but where did they go?
I think I understand your question, and you let me know. So town of Madison residents, instead, every resident who has a library card and is registered in our system has a PSTAT. So it's an identifier basically of where they pay taxes. So when those town of Madison residents were town of Madison, they were considered county, and they were paying the county library tax. So they were part of the group of circulations for which Fitchburg would get a reimbursement. When they became, when they were annexed, and I think roughly it was 2/3 Madison, 1/3 Fitchburg-ish. Yeah. Those P-stats got changed to City of Madison and City of Fitchburg. So now those people, some of those people, not all of them, but some of those people are now Fitchburg residents paying taxes in Fitchburg, but they become part of that group that I don't care about, right? The Fitchburg residents that are checking things out at Fitchburg. So that's kind of how the people are accounted for differently now that they're part of City of Madison and part of City of Fitchburg, as opposed to being their own township. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you bet.
I have a question. For that cross-municipal service, less cross-municipal use, and the fact that we have a net there, or a net negative there, how does that compare to other libraries in the area? And then I guess, can you maybe, I guess let me just start with that one.
Sure. So we can look at kind of where Fitchburg residents are going. I mean, not individually, like I can tell where you go and check things out, but generally I can say, 120 circulations went to McFarland. I'll make that up. McFarland isn't a big issue. Probably the biggest issues are really Verona, Madison, Oregon. Yeah.
And Oregon, I think we expected because of the new building.
Sure.
I think it's Verona that's the big.
Yeah, and I do talk a little bit later about this with regards to because I've been looking at this with communities for a while. I've noticed a real the sense of school district can also have be at play because of where people kind of gravitate or identify as their home library. And I know this just because when I was the director at Sun Prairie, we had a lot of East Madison families who were not part of the city, but they were part of the school district, of the Sun Prairie School District. And we got a lot of residents who would come to programs or come just to check things out who thought Sun Prairie was their home, was their library, because it was in their school district. So there's kind of that identity with school, and so that I would say is the biggest issue, and it's not as the, I mean, Fitchburg does seem to be pretty good library users overall, but they may not be necessarily using their library first all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, you actually anticipated my follow-up question.
okay.
I went ahead and answered that also. So.
Okay. Okay. So I'll go on to the facility reimbursement, which, like I said, that came about a little bit later. And this came out of discussions around how libraries were building buildings or expanding buildings based on their service populations. And so this was a nod basically to the fact that municipalities weren't building or expanding or renovated their libraries just based on their immediate population, but that in fact they were accommodating larger potential use, and that use certainly has, and the fact that populations in Dane County move all over Dane County. So this is derived a bit differently. We figure out basically, whereas the operational is all based on what is the circulation, what is the per cert cost, those are averaged out, and then we figure out kind of how much do we owe everybody for base reimbursement, and then all those other factors factored in. With facility, we basically derive what percent of the total square foot of library space in Dane County is used by county residents. And we do that by looking at how much what percentage of circulation is due to county residents. And then we take that square footage and we multiply it by the lowest square foot cost that the county pays for any rental space in Dane County. And that had been going up pretty steadily in all the years pretty much that I've been here just over 10 years. This past year was the first year it went down slightly. And so everybody noticed an adjustment with facility reimbursement. Then we also do take into consideration that cross-municipal piece. And so that's where it still ends up being negative for Fitchburg, because you still have more folks going out and using other library space than coming back. Then, not that at some point we want to break even, right? Or we're hoping that there's no negative, right? So so that's why we're seeing a drop in the facility reimbursement this year. This is also averaged over 3 years as well to help mitigate some of those peaks and valleys. Any questions on this one? Okay. So then, if we look at what is impacted this year specifically, but kind of what we keep an eye on overall. So we had Town of Madison annexation, which really dropped that base reimbursement. So we know that. That's a good thing. And there's not like anything you could have done to avoid it, right? And it's
not happening again.
It's not happening again. That's right. We were talking about what other places, and I think I looked at Town of Blooming Grove. Was that the other one? That doesn't have nearly the impact that Town of Madison did.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, Fitchburg continues to serve fewer cross-municipal residents than Fitchburg residents use other libraries. And then this also was our first reimbursement figured on the 3-year average that does not have any of our old numbers. Like 2019 probably buoyed everybody a little bit. Yeah. And then we could, like I said, we didn't and couldn't really use 2020 or 2021 numbers. So 2019 was hanging out there until this year. So we're looking at 2026 reimbursement, which is based on 24, 23, and 22 data. So we get that's all real data since the impact of COVID and are being closed and making adjustments. So then, so again, I think this is what I just said. So yeah, we had our loss in base reimbursement because of Town of Madison. 2019 figures buoyed those 3-year averages. Now, this year, we use our 2022, 23, and 24 actual figures. And we've got Fitchburg residents that are using other libraries, which isn't I guess I want to stress, it's not, that's part of how we've designed the system, right? That's part of what libraries have done throughout Dane County is use all your libraries. It's a good thing. But Wendy and I talked a little bit about how do we make sure that people are staying here or coming here first.
It's great that we live in a county that has so many great libraries, and I historically love to encourage people to use all of the libraries, but now we're going to have to focus on how do we get Fitchburg residents to use our library, just to stop this.
Yeah. So, I do think that Fitchburg's reimbursement will stabilize again. I think we thought we were at a stable place, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't necessarily. It's hard to anticipate with as much change as happens in Dane County. It's hard to anticipate what the impact of an annexation will happen or what will have on reimbursement. We'll just mention as a side note, Cross Plains had a huge drop in reimbursement. And when I talked to their director then to let them know this is coming, she said, yeah, we had 2 major library, like power families, move out of the area. And that was enough to drop their reimbursement.
Yeah.
So it's you're never quite sure who's coming or who's going and what their patterns are going to be.
And we see this on a much smaller scale with adjacent county reimbursements as well.
Yes,
we have in the past
exactly.
had some kind of power users in Greene County who then must have moved or something happened and that changed pretty drastically in 1 year. So
Yeah.
there are things you just can't control.
Right. I mentioned that the school districts can impact library use just because people kind of associate some identity with those school districts and their activities and patterns. The New Oregon Library like we always said when Fitchburg opened, we were like, okay, this is gonna have an effect for some years. And I really didn't feel like until really like we got between 8 and 10 years that we fully were like, okay, this is normal now.
When I started this job, the other libraries were very nervous about Fitchburg opening, and I didn't fully understand why, because I hadn't done this before. And now I'm like, oh, no, I get it. Yeah. So
There's an impact, yeah. And then we had just talked about possible outreach as being a really great way to help, especially at the schools that are physically in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
But just in terms of again, spreading the word. Use your library first. You've got this beautiful library. You're all, you have it's such a great value.
Yep.
And
I think people honestly don't understand how it affects us when they check out somewhere else. So, this is part of what we're looking at with the strategic plan, doing kind of a marketing campaign to Fitchburg residents about how this works. So trying to succinctly explain a very complicated formula.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So then, if you would like, I have some standard information we can look at quickly.
Sure.
If you want to. I tried to distill that down. So, as I mentioned, so I'll stop sharing this guy. Okay. And I will go ahead and share this guy. I think this will be the easiest one to look at. Okay. So we talked about standards. Let me see if I can make that just a little bigger. Are you going to make it bigger? Okay. No, don't want that. Down here, here we go.
Yep.
Oh, sorry guys, that's really tiny. Let me make it very big. And then, so when we look at standards, and 2025 is the start of a new set of, or a revised set of standards that I'm sure you all talked about, because everybody had to sign off on it. So we're looking at annual hours open, the staff total, and then we also look at, let me go down.
Madison's hours, is that because, is that a total of all their libraries?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. They're a little different because they do have 9 locations. So they tend to generally exceed their factors or their standards just because of how many facilities they have. And then we've also got our public internet computer requirement and our materials expenditures. You may remember we used to have an items in collection, but with the digital materials and subscriptions that are not only available but also mandated through Overdrive, we really talked a lot about giving the libraries the flexibility to do what they need to do with budget. And I know here at Fitchburg, you all
coming up against that.
Yeah, and you use technology in a really interesting way with tablets and you know, multiple titles on tablets. Not everybody's doing that. Yeah. So so the biggest area, and I should mention, so we're in each population range has a different factor, and those factors decrease as the population goes up. And so for hours open, you all are just fine. The minimum is 58 hours a week, and I think you come up to 63 when I divided it out. And we have talked a little bit about staff, because what I have here is that Fitchburg has 23.11 FTEs. That is a combination of figures. So it's a combination of actual library staff that the city FTE that you all pay for.
That admin fee that we talked about on the finance report is also calculated into a percentage FTE that we get credit for because we're paying their staff to do things instead of our own. So Misty in the finance department calculates that for us.
So that gets factored in. And then this is the first year that we've given libraries credit for if they have a sorter and if they have self-checks. So we give 1 FTE credit for the sorter and a 0.25 for self-checks. So Fitchburg ends up getting 1 for the sorter and then 1.25 for the self-checks. Yep. So that puts you in fairly good stead with regards to the standards. Now, what I look at here, because the standards offer a range, we don't expect any library to be ready to serve the top of the population range if really it just bumped into. So if you're a library that was at 999 or 9,999 people and you just bumped into that 10,000, we don't expect you to be able to serve 24,999 people. So that's why there's this range. But what is required is to be at 100% in one of these. And so I'm keeping an eye on Fitchburg because in some spaces, we're just over 100% in just one, but not both. Yeah. So, and you don't have to be over 100% in both, but it's a kind of a good gauge of how the population is kind of predicts where you need to be standard-wise. So, and I know when we were talking about just kind of staff-wise in general, part of our discussion around this, and Fitchburg was a really, really good example, was how with a growing population and such a new building, I mean, I know it doesn't seem new, but, you know, how old is the building? 14 years. Yep. The newest building in the county, how do you accommodate for the standards while making sure that you have the space you need for collection, that you have the space you need for staff, and how to also tackle some of the reimbursement issues that we've discussed. So let me go back down to the other ones. Here we go. So public computers, we have kind of,
Good.
yes, we're good to go. And we decidedly reduced the public internet computer requirement because so many libraries were finding, like you all did, that there was a big chunk of space taken up just by computers that weren't necessarily being used the same way they were 10 or 15 years ago. But it is required to have to offer Wi-Fi, which everybody in the South Central system does. So thank goodness, for that. So then we also have materials expenditures, which is a little closer overall in terms of where we are with the standard. And all of those are driven by kind of where our population is multiplied by the factor. So this kind of gives us a sense of where we're at. You're probably right about where you should be for this size population, but it does make me wonder what
we are
happens
growing fast.
when you grow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. On the other page that you were on,
Oh,
so
yep.
it
Let me just go up here.
so our population, this is all calculated on that 35,125.
Yep.
The town of Madison also did us the favor of jumping up our population more than expected. I mean, but not more than typical, I guess. We really had 2 years of high growth. And you don't know what the future's bringing, and these are based on the year. Like you don't get the 3-year average,
right.
or like the foresight of this.
Right,
You're reacting to
exactly.
what you're finding out. We'll find out in, I think, October what the actual number is for January, and then we recalculate. So when we talk about adding staff, this is why, and increasing the collections budget. Those are two budget moves that we're going to have to make whether we want to or not, to meet the standards and to exempt from the county tax. So we've been talking about how challenging this budget year is going to be between the drop in the reimbursement and the increase in the staff. It's going to be, and inflation. We could probably handle those two things if nothing else increased in the entire budget, which is not how the world works right now. So, well, or ever.
Yeah.
So I have been working with the planning and zoning department about the rate of population increase and have gotten a better sense of what they are expecting. They're not expecting the big jumps that we've had the last couple of years. And they've given me some numbers. So I'm running a similar spreadsheet about, like, if it goes to this, what do we need to be at to know you can miss standards 3 years out of 10.
You can. You can.
But we don't want to get in a spot
provisional,
where we're
right.
missing them regularly, because then we're just not doing our due diligence.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's why I wanted her to talk about this part of it.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, so I appreciate you doing this. As a newer alder and newer member of the board, I guess you had mentioned, I believe, that every year all of the municipalities have to agree on the standards. Is that correct, or how are the standards?
So
set?
whenever we change them.
Okay.
Whenever we change them. So the standards have been in place since 2000. And they have undergone one change that I remember being, well, I should say two changes that I remember being at Sun Prairie, because I started at Sun Prairie in 2007. And one of those was to afford a range rather than just a hard and fast number, because it was a hard and fast number before. So to allow for the range. And then we did have a change for Fitchburg, actually, in order to have, I think, not just 3 years, but an additional year to meet the collection, the items in the collection standard. And then when I came into my role at Dane County, we were really looking at the digital piece. And I think at that point, we got away from books and audiovisual. I think we combined them to just total items because of what we were seeing and what the expenditures that libraries were having to make on things like Overdrive. And then this last standard, which I think we actually ended up passing, I don't know if it was this past summer or the summer before.
I think it
Was it this past? It's hard to tell now. But whenever we make changes to the standards, I put it through my library board first, and then if they approve it, it goes out to all of your library boards to say, yes, this makes sense, or no, or we've got questions. And then it goes to the County Board of Supervisors for approval.
Okay. And one of the reasons I ask is if it's going to be a tough budget year, I mean, I think that's not just the library and the city. I worry that we're looking at a situation where we're adding staff because we're growing, yet we have so many people who are not using our library and they're going to Verona, yet we still have to accommodate and staff as if we're serving 35,000 people, even though we're seeing more not in Fitchburg Library than in our Fitchburg Library. So it seems like we're kind of in this situation where we're stuck and we're being held to a higher standard than what our usage may actually suggest. And I don't know if it would concern me then that we'd be having to add staff that we may not need when we're already stretched thin just to meet this standard. And, if we miss it 1 year, that's different than if we miss it 3 or 4. But I would not want to see us pay the library tax. And I do want to just clarify on that. Is it an all or nothing if we need to pay the tax? Are we paying the full thing, or is it prorated? Oh, you're off by 2%, so you pay this much versus like if we miss it by 40%.
No, if the county library tax is imposed, then you become one of the communities on which the tax is assessed for that particular year. So and you would continue to fund your library, obviously, because I'm guessing your residents would want that. But yeah, so it's so you become, because I ran some of these numbers just for other purposes. So yeah, it's basically that you become part of the pool of communities that pay the county library tax. So the rate might go down somewhat from where it is currently.
But I believe the last time we paid the library tax for a full year was 2010, and I think it was in the 980,000.
It was
It was close to $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be concerning if we had to.
Oh, I mean,
pay,
that's catastrophic.
We're getting double taxed essentially
Right.
for a service. So that's why I don't know what we could do to revisit the standards, if it would even be feasible by 26. I just don't want to see us have to add staff that we may or may not need, or add another sorter or a self-checkout just to kind of meet an arbitrary goal that's may work great for Madison and Sun Prairie that are have some, or Verona with Epic where they're unlimited pool of money at Epic that we don't have in Fitchburg. So that I don't know that that's an actionable comment, but it's a concern that I'm just voicing in the room that I have been thinking about for a couple months.
I think that's
This is Dan.
Yes.
And I echo my colleague on the board in terms of the formula there's no alignment. I think we need alignment between the formula in which, this work and how do I describe it? There's these external factors that we can't control. One being that, there's a new library in Oregon, right? In Oregon, and then people using Verona Library, and the fact that our location perhaps not as competitive as it should be in compared to, Madison Library. And then also with the population growth, the growth geographically just sort of not close to the library, right? They sort of spread out differently, and people might choose to go to whatever location that is convenient to them. Thirdly, when I think about public school, and I think about how we don't have our own school, our students go to Verona, and it's the difference between that is that when which school district with lines, students required to go to those schools. With library, there's no line, right? We're just sort of part of this communal thing where we hear and people can choose us or they can choose other places. So I feel like the formula is somehow how can we come to a more closer alignment of give us space to in the uniqueness of our city.
And I'll piggyback off of that if I can as well. And I almost wonder if there's a way that, like, instead of using just population, if we could use population and then factor in that number of, we're also seeing, okay, 10% of Fitchburg residents or library users are primarily using Verona, so it's like we get a discount, if you will, or kind of the population. It's as if our population were slightly lower because we have such a significant number of folks who are using our neighboring libraries.
I think I will say, as someone who is a librarian, that circulation numbers do not accurately reflect the services that are always happening within libraries. So I guess it would be my concern using circulation numbers where somebody can come in and check out 100 books and just leave, or someone else comes in and spends 30 minutes getting help on job applications, like how those nuances are reflected in this, because I wouldn't want staff to not go up when that demand for those services.
And I will say we've had that thought as well, and did hire a national consultant to look at the formula to say, like, how do other people do this? What's like circulation? The number of checkouts is not the end all be all, and there's not a better way to do it. It's what we sadly found out.
Yeah. We found out that I mean, first we do a very good job of equitably reimbursing libraries for their service because they get their per circ cost as much as per circ can provide that value to the library, which I think is why the facility was added on in 1999, the facility formula, and why we're looking at program reimbursement as well, as a way to, again, further recognize what all happens in a library. The tough thing is the only thing that we can actually count granularly are those checkouts. And that's...
We talked about like door counts, which I think is probably a better reflection of use. But everybody has different software. Everybody does, some people count 2 weeks a year, some people count every day. We just went from doing one to the other and it's great, but it is also a soft number to some extent. Like you can run through a doorway a bunch of times. So my comment on that is if we did that, we would all have to have the same software installed, hardware installed by the same person, counted by a third party, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like that would have to be turned into a hard number, which it really isn't. I feel like we're sort of trapped in the library world with circulation, which I don't think is right. There are a ton of people that use this library that never check anything out. Yeah. And we're trying to counter that with displays and that kind of thing. But, human behavior is hard to manage. Yeah. I will say the one thing that gives me hope about the staffing number is that it is capped at 25. I had been real panicky about looking at this and had neglected to see the cap and thought we were going to have to go up to 28 something and was ready to try to retire. And then calmed down and looked at it more closely a while ago, and I think that helps us a little bit, but I think it is going to be challenging. I also think that levy limits are affecting every city in this state, and this is, I feel like, kind of one of the many repercussions. We're not the only department. I think everybody. Right. And I feel like that's going to have to change, but that is a whole giant can of worms that is not something we can control. So. Yeah, I feel like we're probably on the edge more than other libraries for a number of reasons, but I feel like other people will be there with us eventually.
And you do, I mean, that's the one thing I would say about the staffing piece, as you have your budget discussions, is because you've got, you can do 3 provisional exemptions within 10 years without having to pay the county library tax. So, and it's a pretty painless process. It's not, but if you got to the point where you didn't think that you were going to meet standard, or even as you plan this year's budget and you think, okay, let's try addressing staffing in this way, and then we'll kind of see what happens. You do have some time to do that with regards to the standards. So it's not like it's a one and done. You do have some flexibility there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is also hard because I think these standards are built as a protection for libraries. And so it's hard to come up against them and feel like they're not working in that way for us. Mm-hmm. But I think that the other libraries very much feel that they are a protection. I think you can see from this, there are a lot libraries with a lot more staff than we have. And I would say, I think we're efficient, and I think we use the sorter and the self-checks very well. We are also a library that opened with self-checks, which has been shown to make a big difference. If you are a library that existed before self-checks and you add them, it's a much slower adoption rate. So I'm happy that we function that way, but that may be playing in here as well. I don't know. It's hard to look at it from both sides, I think. So, yeah. Any other questions for Tracy?
Questions I could answer. All right, well, Wendy knows where I live, so.
Thank you for coming. I think it's very good to see
Absolutely.
all of this from your point of view.
Absolutely. I do think that it is always interesting to look at the numbers and just see the complexity of the library picture. I mean, people are library users in Dane County, which is wonderful.
It's such a strong county for libraries, which is great, but hard also.
Tracy, would you be able to send your slides and the data to the board members or to Wendy to
Absolutely.
I can pass it on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You bet. All right.
Excellent.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
so
me. I will
much.
take my leave.
I'm going
Thank you.
to unplug you.
You're welcome to stay and check something out while you're here.
Okay, I am going to browse. I will browse.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Item B under new business, department presentation policy reviews, adult technical services. I think we usually do the presentation
here.
first. Yep.
So Tegan's going to do a little presentation just about her department, because we've got a lot of new people that I think have not been through this. And then we'll jump into policies after that.
All right. So I'm Tegan Caro. I'm the Adult and Technical Services Manager. And I'm just going to give you a little run through of what we all do. So in our department, there's myself as well as 4 part-time employees. We have 2 part-time librarians. That's Erin and Rebecca. And they do selection for some of the adult materials. Erin does all our fiction books, and then Rebecca does our AV materials, which is DVDs, audiobooks, music CDs. And then recently she's also started selecting for our Advantage account in Overdrive. So those are the audiobooks that are just going to Fitchburg patrons initially. And then we have 2 part-time library assistants, and that's Cora and Marcus. And they do all of our processing of the materials. So as they come in the door, they receive them, get all the labels and stickers on them, and get them ready to go on the shelf. And then all 4 of them also do adult programs. So the adult services piece, we staff the reference desk. So a lot of what we do up here is computer and printing help. That is probably the biggest questions we get, especially with printing. We do that a lot. We handle outer library loans, so if there's items that we don't have in the system that our people are looking for, we help them get that. And anything more involved with reference questions, so anything in depth. I'm trying to think of an example. I think I had someone call about stocks prices or something the other day and had me look them up for them.
Genealogy, I mean, it really could be anything. Job applications, yeah.
And then we also handle all our meeting room reservations and requests. So people will call and make the reservations through us. We help if they have any questions with AV in the rooms and setup and that sort of thing. And then the other piece is the selection of the materials for the adult collection. As I mentioned, Erin and Rebecca do a piece of that, and then I also do the selection for the adult nonfiction. So we get to pick all those. And then we plan the adult programming, book clubs. We have a lot of those going on that are really popular. We also have Beyond the Page, so we write grants for them, have different groups come in. The one picture up there is we partnered with the Wisconsin Metalsmiths. So they came in and showed people how to craft things, and it was really cool. They made bookmarks, and what other piece? Can't remember. I think they were earrings that they did. So that was a really cool program that we did. And then we also do manage the displays throughout the building. So there's some on the first floor as well as here on the second floor that we kind of have different themes every month, and I encourage people to check out. And then the technical services piece, we use the acquisitions module to submit all the orders for our materials. So we receive them through there, and then I do the invoices and credit processing. Sometimes we get credits from some of our vendors if there's errors in processing. We receive some damaged items, things like that. And then we also tracked all our collection funds there as well to see where we're at throughout the year. And then we also add and edit the catalog records. So when new items come in, we add the items, barcodes, different collection information, all in there. And we also process the new items, as I mentioned, add labels, genre stickers, RFID tags, etc. It's all kind of fun because we get to see all the brand new books. It's like Christmas up here sometimes. And then we also manage the magazine subscriptions that come in. We keep track of whether they're weekly, monthly, get them on their shelf. The newest copy we don't allow to circ, so we have to swap those out and get those going. And those are a little bit of a challenge sometimes because of all the changes and cancellations. And
Yeah, they are dropping fast. Just sad.
yeah. So that is my very fast overview. Would you have any questions for me about any of that?
Can you just briefly explain the difference between a librarian and a library assistant?
Sure. So our librarians have their MLIS degrees. So that's kind of the big piece. And so they have a little bit bigger role of having more responsibility. So as I mentioned, they do some of the selection of the materials. They also act as building supervisors. So if like a manager's not in the building, they can handle some of the bigger building issues if there are any. And then they just kind of take more of a lead role in things.
Thanks.
What challenges do you see in the immediate future?
I think that our big thing is getting our circulation increasing. There's also book cost increases and processing fees. All of that is going up. So kind of balancing the new and popular materials and making sure there's extra copies of that for people to check out, but also trying to get people exposed to newer quality authors, indie authors, things like that.
Thank you.
I would also say that we're seeing challenges with audio format. So e-audio and e-books versus print, and there's a lot of different lending models with that is just kind of complicated, and you just kind of have to learn as you're doing it. So you can buy an e-book that checks out 52 times at once, or you can buy an e-book that checks out 52 times in a row, and then they disappear. after that. So it's real hard to know how to spend your money for the longevity, but also to fill demand. Rebecca's dealing with a lot of that with Overdrive right now.
And we're seeing also a decline in the physical item checkout. I think a large part in like CD players and cars are going away, so that's just slowly dropping off. So it's kind of balancing.
I feel like in the past, like VHS tapes, like those hung on for a really long time. Books on cassette hung on for a really, really long time, and I feel like this is going down way faster than anything we've seen before.
Yeah.
So it's real hard to know, like, do you just stop ordering them? Like, do you slow down? Do you weed? Do you not weed? Do you just give that space to something else eventually? But yeah.
Thinking about the digital checkouts and things like that, would that maybe benefit us with all the circulation and stuff? That doesn't matter?
No.
For like Fitchburg residents use the...
No, and we have good use of that, but I don't think it would, even if we could get it worked into the formula.
Sure.
I don't think it's enough to.
But I guess that'd be, the people
Yeah.
aren't going
I think
to front
part
anymore.
of that
Right.
is the format too. Like
Yeah.
you think a digital copy, all these people can check it out at once, but it's still like a wait, and it's a real long
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, we have definitely changed how we look at that. So as Tracy was talking about having the collection size standard, I feel like I was really the one that was like, I don't want to jam more physical books in here just because you have a number on a page. Like I would like to put that money into digital because the wait times are so long.
And that's just how people
and
are now.
And the rest of the libraries listened to that and agreed with it, and we made the change. It took a couple of years. But
We're still running into that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And now we've got 3 policies, and we should do each of them separately with a motion.
Yep. May I have a motion to approve the collection management policy?
So moved.
Thank you.
And we're going to put it up on the screen here as well.
Okay. Let me get to the top here. So collection management policy is kind of our guide in what we choose to add to the collection, also what we choose to withdraw, just kind of overall management of that. So we have kind of different factors in the collection management, and then how we select the materials. And then down towards the bottom, we also talk about collection maintenance, so that's that weeding piece. And then also the reconsideration of library materials, of what our procedures and processes are for that. The only change we made this year was we removed VOYA, the Voice of Youth Advocates, because that is no longer being published. So I know the last couple years we've made some changes and really kind of beefed this up a little bit. So this year we were
Yeah. Yeah, I will say this is the policy that you need when things are challenged. And so we have spent a lot of time, or I would say the last 5 years, tightening this up to just be a protection for us if anything were to happen.
Do you have to reference it regularly or ever? Okay. And
Yes, and we are quick to hand this out if people have questions. Yeah.
Okay.
So if someone wanted to request reconsideration for like 400 books, as we've seen elsewhere, would they have to come in and fill this out 400 times?
But you can have, I think, one in process at a time.
Yes, I believe that.
And you have to be a Fitchburg resident.
Okay.
That was a change that we made a few years ago because of exactly what you're talking about, is somebody will come in from a different state with a list of 400 books and say, take these off the shelf until, so we also say in here that it will stay on the shelf until a decision is made.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you get many requests for, many challenges?
So we've had 2 since I've been here. And they were both legitimate. Forgive me for everybody who has heard this. I tell this story a lot. We had one that was a book about eating disorders for, I would say, tweens. So it was in the juvenile collection, and the former just said, there's some outdated information here. I think like it feels maybe not sensitive and there might be something better. And I hated the book more than she did when I got to look at it. It was part of the opening day collection. I don't know where it kind of came from. It didn't come onto our radar for a long time, hadn't checked out in a long time. Probably should have been weeded. So I was really more concerned about looking into why it hadn't been weeded if it wasn't going out well. But there are better things out there and we found one. So that was an easy decision. The next one was a DVD of Tom and Jerry, and Tom is wearing an Indian feathered headdress, and someone just returned it with a form that said this feels a little culturally insensitive, and I said absolutely it does, and we have 27 other Tom and Jerry DVDs, and we don't need to have this one. So it's worked really well for us, and I think it's a good reminder that this is a tool that works not just for trying to ban things and take things off the shelf, but just for like maybe this has lived its useful lifetime and needs to not be in the collection.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, other libraries have had very different experiences. I think we are all bracing ourselves to have those experiences. I think this is as good as we can make this to control how things happen. And be cognizant then here that the staff makes a recommendation to me and I make a recommendation to the patron, and if they don't like it, it does come back to the board. So you are the last sort of level of escalation.
And this is for all parts of the collection,
Yes.
children, okay.
Yes.
I think it's very comprehensive. I think your flow makes a lot of sense for the reconsiderations. And I appreciate that you link to professional resources in the addenda that kind of overarch and govern
Yeah.
where you're at on this. So I think it's a really good policy.
Thank you.
And it shows that this isn't just Fitchburg trying to be punitive or, this is in alignment with, national
Yes.
best practices.
This is with the profession. This is, yeah. Yep, absolutely. I'm glad that comes across.
So then is the removal of Voya, that's the only change?
Yep.
Yes.
And then what happened to Voya? Is that just,
It was sort of like around COVID, during
okay.
COVID, I think they just couldn't.
okay.
Stay afloat.
There wasn't just some we don't like them anymore, they don't.
No,
Yeah.
no, I think they were too specialized. So a lot of the other ones that are listed here do all age ranges.
Sure.
So.
Okay, anything else? If not, all in favor of approving the collection management policy, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item under new business, 2B reconsideration form. Can I get a motion to approve the reconsideration form?
So moved.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the form that that is referenced in the collection management policy that they would complete if there was any objection to any material. And we did not have any changes on that this year.
I love question one.
I love you have to give a book report on.
Exactly.
There are a lot of people that will request a reconsideration because someone told them to, some group they're in told them to, and they don't know. I had, this didn't happen to me, but I know someone who had, someone requested To Kill a Mockingbird be taken out for cruelty to animals.
Amazing.
We'll take your book report when you're done with it. Talk about it then, yeah.
But in seriousness here too, I think I really like the part about please include a specific page number and citations given staff capacity.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to go home and do the book report.
Right.
It's
Right.
the onus is on the person
Absolutely.
making
Yeah.
raising the objection.
Yes.
To argue like an affirmative.
And you have to be specific, right? You can't just say, like, I'm offended by this. You have to say why.
Yep. No, I think it's good.
Yeah. Excellent.
One thing I guess I will ask is if this form is available digitally?
Yes.
And, okay,
I was gonna ask that.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep, it's linked on the website.
okay. So if somebody with terrible handwriting like yours truly were to.
Yes.
Okay.
You could absolutely. Uh-huh. Okay.
Anything else? All right, if not, all in favor of approving the reconsideration form, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then number 3, can I get a motion to approve the photocopy and copyright policy?
So moved.
I'll motion.
Yep.
All right, so this is the photocopy and copyright policy, and it's pretty standard, just letting patrons know of the copyright law, post that above our copy machine, and I don't think we've made changes for this one for a number of years.
Yep.
It's pretty basic.
This is one of the boring ones that we just have to follow the law.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question about the photocopies?
Uh-huh.
Provided by the Fitchburg Library portion. So how are staff guided in the process of making those determinations? For example, if a patron from California were to request, you print off and email them a chapter of a book from 2019, for example.
I would run to the copier and read the exact text.
Yes.
I think we would say no to that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it could never happen. It doesn't happen. I feel like I've done a lot of phone reference in my life and expected to get that kind of thing from outside of the community, and it doesn't happen often. But I do think they would just follow fair use, right? Like if it's a whole chapter, probably not. Most people will come in and do this on their own.
Sure.
So we don't get a lot of that, but yeah. Do you have anything to add?
No.
I was just curious,
Yeah.
as someone who works in copyright law.
Yeah, right. You know a lot about this.
Yeah, so, and I just would want staff to feel supported.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that this doesn't come up very often, but I know when it does come up, sometimes it can be overwhelming.
I think 100% we would be taking that person's contact information and discussing it in the back room,
Okay.
for sure. Like, I don't think anybody has to make a call on if it's fair use or not.
Okay.
By themselves. Absolutely
I
not.
think it kind of follows any of our policy. If staff need support, managers are always happy to step in and take over.
And knowing our staff, it would be 3 managers
Yeah.
chatting about it. Like, is this what you would do? Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And at the price of photocopies, if you're going to try to do more than a chapter, it's going to be cheaper to just go buy the book yourself if
Right.
you want it anyway.
Yeah. Well, now that people can scan stuff, like we get less and less
Yeah.
need for it, so.
Okay, anything else? If not, all in favor of approving the photocopy and copyright policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you, Tegan.
Great.
You are free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8, President's Report. So thank you everyone for being here. I'm sure Wendy's going to mention this, but the survey is out, and I have seen that some of you have shared this on social media and stuff like that. I'm not super involved with social media, so it's nice to see that y'all are spreading it around, and I appreciate that. And then just echoing the email about Trustee Training Week being on August 18th. I have never been to any of these, but I'm sure it's a great resource, and so consider going to that. And then I'll pass it over to Wendy.
Excellent. All right, so summer reading has started, and it has been crazy around here, which is fantastic. We had 703 people in the building on Monday for the official launch of it throughout the day, but that is, we average 400 people in the building, so staff will say it really felt like it started a week earlier, so we had some schools out, some not out. Another joy of not having our own school district So it's kind of been crazy in here for about a week and a half, but in a really good way. Everybody seems really happy. Everybody's having a good time. People are behaving themselves. It's been great. Having the new people counting software is fantastic because staff at every desk are looking at like how many people are in here right now. Like this story time is crazy. How many people are here? So that's been really good to see. Statistics. So we are looking through May here. You'll see that we're down a little bit in programs in April and May, and that is something we do every year on purpose as we're gearing up for summer reading. So we're very busy planning things. It's not typically, you see a lot in March for spring break. We typically have more, and then we kind of calm down in April and May, and then you'll see it go way back up in June. So nothing concerning there. Facilities, things are going great. We are working on the second floor plan. We've got quite a bit of furniture in. We got a second bid on the wall project today that came in very favorably. So I think that will be moving through the process soon, which is very exciting. You'll notice we've got a new display unit out here. It is not fully stocked. There were some issues with some bent pieces and some screws not going in straight. And I wasn't happy with it. So when I came back from vacation, we had a little talk, and they're ordering new pieces. There is a second version of this. It's a little bit smaller that had not enough pieces to even put it together that were not damaged. So apparently they were shipping damage. So that is being rectified, hopefully shipping in early July. So I'm hoping that'll be all taken care of by the end of July. We did get shelving installed in the tech center. We're not moving collections yet because that room is going to be under construction, so we don't want to have it open to the public. We are working on surplusing the furniture that is coming out of that room. I did offer some of it to City Hall. They were interested in some chairs. The rest of it, I think, will go on surplus. Those computer tables, nobody seems to want because they're enormous and heavy and you can't move them. So we'll see how that does on surplus. They're in the garage right now.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I know this state system for surplus. What is the city?
We use Wisconsin Surplus that's out in Mount Horeb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we send them pictures and then people pick up here. And so I wish we could take our stuff and leave it with them. I know other departments do that, and we did it once and then they didn't want to do it anymore. We do a lot of computers with them, so I think that's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so that I think is everything with facilities. Personnel, we promoted a shelver into the library assistant 2 and youth services. His name is Josh. He's got after-school care experience and theater experience, so I think he's been great doing programs in children's. He has jumped right in the week before summer reading that turned out to really be the first week of summer reading and has been doing great. So very happy with that. Of course, as always happens, then it opens a shelver position. We also had another shelver get better hours at her full-time job. So we've got 3 positions right now that we're interviewing for next week. So we should be back up and running there. We've been offering extra hours to the current shelvers and LA ones and kind of assigning people to have an hour here or there shelving just to keep up because summer reading is generally crazy with picture books. And so that has been working out really well. So Phil is managing all of that and it's going great. Strategic planning, the survey is open, as you noted. I think Tegan said we had 80-some responses, so it opened on Monday, so happy with how that's going so far, and getting some interesting comments back, so as always, so that'll be good. Good feedback so far, so happy with how that's going.
How long do we keep that open?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Yep. Yeah, so everything is going really well.
Could you briefly, Wendy, just give a sense of what we're hoping to achieve and use the survey results for?
Sure.
Other than hopefully figuring out why everyone's going to Verona.
That's first thing. So we are asking, what libraries do you use? How often do you use them? School district, kind of trying to do some correlating of where do you live and where are you going? And then there are a couple of open-ended questions about services. So looking for, are there services that people really want that we could add easily? Are there things that nobody mentions that maybe we don't need to be doing? Just kind of trying to see what it is that people want. Within reason, because we are getting things that have nothing to do with the library. And we're not expanding into bike paths because that's not our job.
Was that Steve Arnold?
I don't know. So, yeah, I think the question that we wish we would have put on the survey that we didn't was like, what do you like about the library? Like, we're asking a lot about what would you like us to do, which is great, and we want that information, but I think for all of our egos, it would have been nice to say, like, what do you love about us already? Yeah. And we're getting some of that without, like, in the other questions, but yeah. Note for next time. Yeah.
And that next one, that's in like 5 years again?
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe 6.
maybe 6.
I kind of like to have a buffer year in between. Kind of helps everybody recover. So, yeah.
Well, thanks to all the staff for the summer reading efforts. I know from past experience, that's always a busy time and stressful sometimes, but I'm really glad to hear it's going well. And
yeah.
that
If you haven't strolled through the youth area, if you want to see how youth librarians can take a piece of paper and a sewing machine and make amazing visual art, like they have done great things. They've turned the end panels into crayons. It's fantastic. They can do anything with nothing. It's fantastic. Yeah, I would recommend going through. And if you haven't seen Bob Ross out here, the 12-foot tall skeleton wearing a wig, then you're really missing out. Any other questions for me? All right.
Maybe I do have.
Yeah.
And it's more of a comment, and,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you're aware of this, but the Kids Crossing section of McKee Farms Park is going to be redone.
Mm-hmm.
I think tore down and rebuilt. So there was concern by the Friends about the little free library that they,
Oh, yeah.
so brief history, the Fitchburg Verona Rotary Club
Yeah.
put up a little free library over by Kids Crossing several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then they approached us a couple of years ago to help stock that with books,
Yeah.
primarily youth or kids genre books.
Mm-hmm.
And then the box of the library box that was there was kind of in need of some repair.
Sure.
The Friends approached the Rotary Club and said, we'll just take it over and we'll replace the box. And we've done that with a permanent structure, more permanent weather-resistant structure. But there's concern about what is the plan for this little free library
Yeah.
when they redo this
Yeah.
Kids Crossing thing.
I can try to find out.
I think it'd be, I just wanted to kind of put put that out there to make sure that we've got some support for that continuing.
And does it need to
I'm sure I-
temporarily move or come down or
Right.
to save it? Yeah.
If it needs to go to another spot, we'll move it to another spot.
Yep.
That's not a problem, but,
I'm glad you said that because it reminded me of something that I should inform you of that I'm trying to act like isn't happening. We're having our parking lot replaced. So like milled out and fully replaced. Great, because Public Works is doing it. It's not our project. But I originally was told that we could do that after summer reading ended and then was told that was incorrect. They have already taken out the parking lot behind the senior center, and now it's rained for 2 days, so they have not started reconstructing that yet. The Friends have a book sale coming up,
next week.
June 26th, 7th, and 8th.
Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
So I begged them not to take out the parking lot before that sale,
Yeah.
because that would be terrible. It's their biggest sale of the year. And they agreed to do a different lot before they come for us. But that will be happening, and it will be, I think, probably in July. Timing is not great, but construction season is what it is.
And they have a record number of books for the sale.
Yeah,
It's just-
yeah, it's going to be a big one. So
Come,
yes, come
Get
buy
some
some
books.
books. It'll
Buy
be
some, check
fantastic.
some out.
Yeah. Okay, that's really all I have.
And on the point about Kids Crossing, I don't recall at council yet seeing or referring out to parks or anyone else any sort of plans for that, what that would look like yet. So
it's not imminent?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, I can't pull off the top of my head when the construction would be, but
Okay.
plenty of time to address that. And
Yeah.
I can send a note around as well.
Okay.
it gets a lot of use. The little free library
Yeah.
gets a lot
Yeah.
of use over there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So it's
Prime
not
real
like
estate.
this summer that they're going to be doing that. It's somewhere in the future.
I can't imagine it would be, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
As someone who lives next to the park, put stuff in the little free library.
Well, and that's, most little free libraries just, take one, bring one, or leave one and take one. Most of these are take one, which is fine.
Yeah.
And that's why the Friends have been supplying books for that, because kids are taking them, and that's what it's there for.
Yep, yep,
Want to put the books in the kids' hands, right? So.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Item number 10, announcements. The next library board meeting will be Wednesday, July 16th, 2025 at 5:30 in the large library meeting room. Item 11, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Oof, that was a long one.
I know, I'm so sorry.
All right.